Incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
Moopsy.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Not a great plan.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Different roads, same old spark. Talking Trek till the street lights spark. We're those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cannon lighting up the airwaves. Blasters of books, we're geek to the core. Laughing through the lore on those sci-fi guys.
And indeed, we are those sci-fi guys, and this is that Those Sci-Fi Guys show, just two working dudes, different lives, different jobs, or a whole lot of love for science fiction and the fun that comes with. We're your hosts. I am P.S. McKay, and we're going back to the moon, baby.
I am TT Cavman, and I guess we are.
I would have anticipated, like, you know, maybe like, no way, this is incredible. We landed on the moon.
Landed on the moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have it all there.
So. I can tell. I can tell. It's fine. It's fine.
I was trying to tee it up, but I couldn't, and I didn't want to screw it up. So
yeah. So yes, indeed.
Few things are worse than really butchering a quote.
Well, I mean,
for us,
is that an indictment on me or something?
No, it just it takes you out of the reminiscence, right?
Perhaps a little bit. But, you know, I mean, as someone who butchers all quotes all the time, but lives by and quotes them anyway, whatever. I mean, it's just you take what you get as long as it reminds you of the moment. So
yeah, well, like whatever, man.
That's just like your opinion. What's that from?
Well, The Big Lebowski.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, big story today.
I guess that's just like your opinion, man.
There it is. That's a hell of a Caucasian
right, man. How's the smut business, Jackie?
Yeah. Jackie Treehorn treats objects like people, man. Yeah. Big Lebowski is just it's a treasure. And it's a terrible shame that it just bombed. Probably one of the greatest comedic movies ever made.
It eminently quotable. It not only had a huge cult following, it's become like a classic now.
Well, and what's crazy about it is my roommate showed it to me freshman year of college. And, you know, I went to school in LA. That's not a secret. He was from middle America. Let's just say the Midwest. And he was like, this is a great movie, but coming out to LA and being able to see all the places that they filmed it at just adds a deeper meaning now, which was crazy. I mean, like I lived and I went to those places. I bowled at that bowling alley before they tore it down, like several times. What's so funny?
It never sounds good when a guy from either coast talks about middle America. It just sounds condescending.
Oh, middle America, Midwest. I mean, listen, I'm a champion for that area, whatever. Fucking Japan loves that place like no other, by the way. Like, I don't know if you've heard about that.
Japan loves the Midwest.
Yeah, in every way, shape. All right, so real quick story over this past weekend.
They must really enjoy country karaoke then.
Oh, they absolutely do. That's been done, actually. There's a big post of a bunch of Japanese citizens singing Country Road by John Denver in a mix of English and Japanese, and it is gorgeous.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, man. Everybody sings Country Road from John Denver. I was at it when I went to see Jelly Roll. He sang part of that. When I went
my
to
point is
Gaelic
they
Storm
liked
and the
it.
High Kings, they did Country Roads. It's just one of those ones that seems to cross over.
It crossed over well, and they liked it, and they had a fidelity to it. So my point is there was an executive at X who made an announcement that the country that uses X the most is not the United States, but it's Japan. And people in the United States were like, no way, Japan, really? And the exec was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And he flipped the switch so it's an auto translate between Japanese and English for the people that post in Japanese or English together. So those posts will immediately mingle. And Japanese posts were finding American posts much more easily. And like there's this merge of Japan and Middle America just happened, and it was magical. It was gorgeous. Like these Japanese posts were like, there's nothing better than just seeing a bunch of American men standing around a grill, grilling meat and drinking beer and talking. Like, and I love the quality. I love seeing what they could do with the meat and how they do it, and lion dancing and stuff. And Americans were like, that's really cool, man. Guess what? We're going to take you out shooting if you ever want to come out. And by the way, I'd love to go see your country. There's a whole new relation in populism between the United States and Japan that has nothing to do with diplomacy.
It's its own type of diplomacy.
It is. And it's a very feel-good, wonderful moment.
Grassroots.
It absolutely is. What is not grassroots is the Artemis launch. For the first time in over 50 years, we're going back to the moon. We're not landing, but we're going to be taking humans farther from Earth than they ever have before.
Drive-by of the moon.
A little bit. We're going to loop around the moon. We're not going to orbit it, but we're going to loop around. We're going to orbit the Earth, and then they're going to launch off and then loop around the moon and then come back a couple times around the Earth and then land. Just basically a test thing, just to
didn't Apollo
the
13 though loop around the moon?
Of course it did. They weren't supposed to, though. They had too much fuel. So there's that too. Again, but here's the thing:
intentional or unintentional.
Yeah, well. Anyway, I want to bring up one point. This is what a lot of people who think the moon landings are fake will feel in a few days.
Dude, don't even get me started. I can't even.
Well,
but it's okay.
That's the joke, though. I mean, the moon landings are real. One of the big things, I'll switch it, I'll back over here. But one of the big things about the argument about the moon landings being fake was that NASA has publicly said that they just don't have the technology anymore to be able to do it. And that's a big misnomer. Here's the deal. We don't have the technology that they used in the 60s to go back to the moon, because that technology is no longer being made or in manufacture at all. So what we have to do is we have to redevelop everything based off of the technological prowess and skill and measurements that we have now. So yes, there was a technological loss, but it's not because we faked it. It's because of just a progress in manufactural quality and precision. Does that make sense?
It does.
So
technology changed. We should, in theory, since technology has progressed, be able to advance that.
Right. And we have. And here's the kicker. We haven't needed to do a lot of test launches for the Artemis program. we've only done like 4, I think, before this launch with the actual astronauts. They did Orion launches before they named the Artemis program. But yeah, so it's going to be Artemis. This is Artemis 2. Artemis 3 will work on docking around the Earth, either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And then in 2028, Artemis 4 will be landing on the moon with the intention of setting up a base. And I believe NASA will be pre-launching some supplies and stuff over to the moon at that time. So this is a full-on buy-in of lunar base, Project Luna kind of stuff. It's exciting. This is the sci-fi stuff that we've been wanting to live and see for,
This isn't sci-fi stuff now. This is just
science reality. Well, you know what I mean. But up until now, it was sci-fi, and now we're beginning to see it play out, and that's fun. After we've gotten our tricorders, and then our hello computer, our series and our best friends and our AI now.
Our metal liquid retention devices.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me maximize you here for a second. What is that? Show us that. Is that the 250 Newport? Is that the Gansett?
The 250 Gansett, yes.
Yeah, there it is. Good stuff.
Which is basically an update of the 200 from the bicentennial in 1976. Only this is a tall boy.
Yeah. Tell me you're keeping at least one can after you drink it.
I probably should.
You should. You didn't even think until now?
Well, alcohol, what it does to memory.
No, it is the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. That's for sure.
Thank you, Homer.
So
I'll just have to pick up another 6-pack that has this next time I'm out.
I'll have to. It's probably. I would love to try a Gansett. I don't think it's available. I'm going to DC in June. We're not going to be able to do. Unfortunately, the White House is going to be closed. We had applied with our congressional representative to do a White House tour, and unfortunately, it's closed during the time we were there. So I'm kind of disappointed about that. But I don't think they sell Gansets in DC.
I was drinking some in Kentucky, dude. You probably will have a chance.
All right. I'll keep an eye out. And by the way, buying alcohol on the East Coast is a hit or miss kind of thing. That's definitely true.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can't go and buy beer or wine in the grocery store.
No.
Until
you have to find a specific place, and
it's a packy. You just gotta find yourself a packy. When I was living in Maryland, had a great liquor store. It was right next to my favorite pizza place and an Irish pub. It was a fantastic location.
Oh my! So when you order the pizza, you just go to the pub and wait. Do they sell beer at the pizza place?
Yeah, you could sit. I think they serve booze. It was a little Greek place. It was fantastic.
Greek pizza is really good.
It wasn't your standard crispy Greek pizza. It was a little more almost New York-ish. But you could get baklava and, gyros. And we used to call every Friday night so much that the same girl who worked there recognized our order and go, "Oh, hey, DT, how are you? You getting the rest of the order?" Yeah. Oh, you're getting something different tonight. Well, in addition to, okay, we've got guests.
Oh, yeah, we have guests. Special guest.
Well, it was kind of neat to have, nice to have like a few spots that were regular, and it was very good food. In fact, there was one night I went to pick it up, and it was just mob, and I was like, "Wow, you guys are killing it tonight." They're like, yeah, there was like a Facebook rumor that we were closing. So like people were like rushing over here and we're not closing. I'm like, somebody's running some psyops in your favor, I see.
Yeah. That works. Oh, goodness.
But there was a nice little liquor store right next door, too.
Well, we'll have to
get my
keep in
Chimay
mind.
there. Wasn't drinking Narragansett at the time. So.
Well, I'll let you know if I can find it while I'm there. So.
Well, just
like
remember.
10 days.
The old Narragansett, back before it originally shut down in the 80s, was like the PBR of New England. When the
now
Nectars,
it's a delicacy.
Now when the Nantucket Nectars guys bought it and reopened it, they actually provided, things like flavor and skill in brewing.
Well, because they're Nantucket. So Nantucket Nectars is still in business?
Mm-mm. They sold, and then with all their money, they reinvested and reopened Narragansett.
That's a bold strategy, man.
And it paid off.
It looks like it's paying off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
You want to know what's funny? When the original Narragansett brewery closed down, the town of Narragansett got the sign, and it's literally in the middle of this, this rotary. You drive in, like you're heading down towards the seaport, and it's like, welcome to Narragansett, but it's literally the Narragansett sign from the old brewery.
Oh my. You gotta love New England style, that's for sure.
Sure. And folks, just in case, if you ever want to know, there's a cultural reference of Narragansett. That's what the beers that Clint was drinking and crushing on the boat in the movie Jaws. In fact, so much so that they in the summer, the Narragansett on their social media will hashtag, here's a new beer, hashtag crush it like Quint. There's been a lot of hashtag, especially when they release the 1975 cans, which come out every year, every summer, and it looks like the cans. They were old pull tabs, so they're not the same, but the
tabs
design is the same.
Yeah.
And they're made out of this stuff, not the old tin cans from the back of the day.
Was it tin back then?
I don't know, but it's definitely different than these aluminum cans. Your beer history quote of the evening. Thank you. So, you think they snuck any booze on board the rocket?
Probably not. No.
All right. So picture this: 3 Americans and a Canadian blast off to the moon. Sounds like the start.
How blasted off were they?
Exactly. Does sound like the start of a joke, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is good to see some actual space exploration again. Not saying that everybody who went up to the International Space Station and whatnot, but it's kind of nice to see us pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Here, I got a little theory about that. Keep going.
If nothing else, if you're looking for something, even just the veneer of it looking positive, it's kind of neat, nice to watch. Oh, look, we're going to the moon, we're reaching to the stars, we're using explosive rockets for scientific purposes.
Yep. I'll say this. I got a theory as to why we're suddenly seeing this explosion of NASA suddenly having all this progress.
Because they're going to film a live action movie of The Martian.
That will eventually happen, yes. But Project Hail Mary is still in the theaters, so they don't want it to interfere.
I haven't seen that yet.
I'm going to see it this weekend with my son. We're going on Saturday.
Nice.
be probably a good review episode if we could pull it off, but I don't want to. It's Easter weekend, so I understand if you're busy.
Easter weekend's tricky, and I'm working.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll find a way.
See.
But I after this whole like lull, so we lost the space shuttle. I think it was discontinued in 2013. And then there was this whole project, Constellation project to go back to the moon by 2018. And then the Obama administration put the kibosh on that. And then it was just like, well, Americans are just paying the Russians to take us up to the International Space Station. And didn't look like NASA had any money to be able to develop a new plan on how we can be independent again. And that was when SpaceX swooped in. SpaceX already had, plans and contracts and patents and stuff that they were working on since 2010. At the very least, I could be off by a couple of years, one way or the other. And Elon goes ahead and shows how it can be done in the private sector. And it can be done well. There was a lot of failure in the beginning, which happens, and that's okay. That's how we learn. And that's what he said. Like, a lot of people in the press who were on Elon's side at the time were like, well, how do you take these failures and find the way to keep moving? He goes, the failures teach me what not to do the next time. These are good things, because I don't want to succeed on the first round and then have something fail later. I want to have the failures happen up front so that we can ensure that everyone is safe, when they're ready. When we're ready to bring people up. And then, I remember the first Dragon capsule that was unveiled, and Russia was kind of a little pissy about it because that Dragon capsule looks about 50 years ahead of technology and time than the Soyuz shit that they still use to this day from the 70s, the 60s and 70s. And what were you going to say?
No, I just know that the space shuttles had shag carpet on them. That was also
it kind of did. I went to space camp. I saw it. It was there in the in the module simulator. So, but yeah, I think SpaceX and then Blue Origin, owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame, was kind of spurred on. Like, I want to do this too. That spurred the private enterprise. And then NASA's like, oh, wait, we really can do this. And we could probably do it cheap too. And they learned from SpaceX and the others, like how they can figure out how to do it based off of their prior knowledge of technology and everything. So that's why we're suddenly seeing this explosion.
Maybe instead of putting Musk in charge of government oversight, they should have put him in charge of NASA.
Well, Musk can be in charge of a lot of things. I mean, here's the thing. He's not a scientist. He's an ideas man. And he's been able to pull off a whole lot of scientific achievements between artificial intelligence, social management, autonomous cars, electronic cars, rocket engineering, and tunnel burrowing. That's what happens when you have a visionary. Like him or hate him.
I mean, moles, rabbits, snakes, they make holes.
Listen, when I hear someone who is intelligent, more intelligent than me, I listen. I don't think that I can contradict them. I realize I can't contradict them. There is no way that I can win an argument against them. A lot of people don't understand that when they come up against someone who's smarter than they are.
That's where you throw in the good old-fashioned, well, I guess that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, that's when you throw in the, but still. Like, you get completely beaten down in facts and realities, and then you're just like,
please.
Yeah, but still.
Just know that this has been my life anytime since 2020 when I almost died. And I have to listen to people who are like, well, the vaccines and all this. And it's both. Yeah. Okay. I was dying in the hospital. Okie dokie. That's how we're gonna go with this. Ugh. Numbskulls. You want to see the pictures? I got pictures.
No, because I literally fucking talked to you in the ICU.
Not you.
For
I'm
6
making a point.
weeks.
I'm making a point. Not you. Just saying. It's like, oh, you want to see the pictures? You want my medical records? I still have the stack. You want them?
I don't
No?
recommend you share that. I don't recommend you share that.
Yeah, I know. It was. I mean, the point is that there's just sometimes people nowadays, it actually forever, indisputable scientific fact. Yeah, I don't believe you. There's still people who think dinosaurs don't exist. Flat earthers.
Yeah. No, I'm not in defense of flat earthers or the fact that people deny dinosaurs or anything. My one thing is science is a fluid thing. It's fluid.
So is this, man.
I know. Just be careful because science is all about asking why. It's not about saying this is it completely.
No, I 100% agree. There's always pushing the boundaries. It's the denial of things that are very clearly there. You know.
And someone who does deny just on the face of it, not asking something or not probing to figure out why they might be facing a conflict of their worldview, that's a problem.
Well, when you have a very hard and fast worldview, things,
and that's the problem right there.
Well, but most people have them, right? And
yeah,
how you react to that change, that challenge, is how you grow and adapt. And this is exactly something you witness in the topic of tonight's video.
That's a really smooth transition, DT. That's a really smooth transition. So we'll mention that in just a second. But just to summarize,
I've already done the segue. We're into the episode.
Just to summarize, one can always be humbled when they have a hard, fast attitude.
After the segue.
I don't even know how to. All right, fucking go in, dude. Here we are, sharing it. Jesus.
We'll deal with him in a couple of days.
There it is. There we go. Yes. Hello, stranger.
Folks, tonight, our actual discussion point. Well, it's always good to stay relevant. Sure. While it's good to stay relevant with the fact that today we literally NASA sent, 4 astronauts right back to space, the open space between us here and the moon, and they're going to go navigate around the moon and return back to Earth. It's always good to get that real science out there, the real exploration. But again, here we are. We're doing another episode review. And that's a throwback, going all the way back to season 4 of The Next Generation, the fantastic episode, The Wounded, which is famous for being the introduction of the Cardassian race, as well as the expansion of the character of Miles O'Brien. It was a fantastic episode, at least from this old soldier's perspective. It was a season 4 episode right when Star Trek The Next Generation was really starting to run on a major hot streak. But it for as good as this episode is, I just occasionally just don't feel it gets the credit it deserves. But basically the gist of it is the Enterprise is supposed to be touching base with the Cardassians, a people who the Federation had had a series of border conflicts with over the last decade or two, on and off.
It does, and I just intersect. We've talked about border skirmishes before in Federation history.
Sure.
The Zenkathi were another example of this. Both TNG and Star Trek DS9 were terrible about emphasizing that these were border skirmishes and not full-out wars. It was described that this was a full-on war with the Cardassians, and when Picard opens up and he does his captain's log, and he talks to number one, he's like, this is the first time since the war that I've been here, and last time I remember I was in the Stargazer flying like a bat out of hell to Federation space, and so the war was that long and ongoing, and the peace treaty is only a year old as of season 4 of TNG.
Well, true, meaning that it's very recent. Things have been going on and off, but again, the Federation expands. Even to what people kind of forget is the Federation seems to expand much faster than these conquering empires, mostly because they reach out, they explore. If there's vacant spots, they go ahead and they put down roots for colonies. But it's the Federation continues to grow. They invite new members in, and as they grow, they'll bump into other species who are maybe not so inclined for peaceful relations, or feel that we're getting into their sphere of influence, which leads
and that
to
is
conflicts.
an inevitable situation.
Correct. And not everybody they meet is as benevolent. There's plenty who come in who are, who eventually either become allies or become members of the Federation. Usually those are, I would not say solely, benevolent. There's been some few, like the Andorians, who are a bit more aggressive, but who demonstrated the capacity to, build something together with the other races and whatnot. Others, like the Klingons, the Romulans, the Cardassians, Tholians, some of these more, the Gorn, these are either races that are very much all about themselves, conquest, or they just don't trust others. So you get that, and
Xenophobic.
what you hear. Yeah, some of them are. But what you get, what the Next Gen and Deep Space Nine generally try to show you is why the Federation seems to have these skirmishes with, these border conflicts with these these races, like in these nations, like the Cardassians, the Zenkathi, the Talarians.
Arena in the original series, that was
pornography.
Literally showed how it could happen with a border colony suddenly being under attack by an unknown species, because that unknown species had already declared that territory was theirs.
Sure.
And that was the whole premise of Arena with the Gorn. So,
and that's kind of how they explain the galaxy of the Federation and of Star Trek, right? So the Federation, as it grows, continues to bump up against these people, and sometimes it doesn't go well. And the Cardassians,
just like Keiko's breakfast,
right? The Cardassians and the Federation did not see eye to eye, and led to a series of border conflicts and skirmishes over the years.
Do we have an idea? I'm gonna turn on my light here. My trusty encyclopedia. I wanted to bring this out for this episode. Keep going.
Well,
I'm just trying to figure out how long the Cardassian Wars were.
It was at least a decade, because by this point, the Stargazer, Picard had, the Stargazer had been gone for about a decade at this point. So we're looking at a decade to 15 years, because O'Brien was a younger man when this, obviously, even a year ago, he was a younger man, but you get my point. He was a much younger man during the Cardassian Wars and whatnot. So, of course, this is also the episode right after Data's Day. So you get, the newlyweds of Miles and Keiko here having breakfast. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is actually supposed to be making contact with a Cardassian ship. And the Cardassians show up and open fire. Now,
right away.
The Cardassians are, at least, they're not quite to the technological level, or at least of a Galaxy Class Starship. The Cardassian warship is not able to. They open fire. They launch a couple of pretty good shots, especially with the shields down. But the Enterprise actually throws up the shields, takes a couple of good swings, and kind of knocks the Cardassians on their ass. And finally get the Cardassians to open communication. You get to see the strange visage of not only the Cardassians, but their weird facial helmet.
Yeah, that. And their oddly blocky uniforms that in HD look horrible, by the way.
Yes.
The stretches and the wrinkle marks on it are just horrendous.
Yeah. So clearly supposed to evoke some sort of combat uniform. And it does look a little cheesier in HD. But, Picard's like, dude, what gives? We were going to let you know we were in the area just because, there's a peace treaty. He's like, why are you shooting at us? Well, I'm shooting at you because you shoot at your enemies during war. Picard's like, dude, the war's over. He's like, tell that to the Federation Starship.
That is what one does, or we're not the ones who started. That is what one who does when they're in war, Captain.
Yeah, they're
something.
Something
classic Mark Alamo.
His speech patterns were, of course, always fantastic.
Yeah, just damn.
And this is the first time we get to see Mark Alamo as a Cardassian. Obviously, he's playing the role of Gul Macet, the first Cardassian we ever meet. But he is
the others.
And later on, this guy becomes Gul Dukat.
Here's a good one of Gul Macet. I mean, look at this. Look. Just, oh, God.
He's also the only Cardassian you've ever seen with facial hair.
That's true. No. His aide or attaché also had facial hair. The one that tried to go to 10 forward with O'Brien, I believe.
Oh yeah, maybe, but you never see facial hair on Cardassians after this.
Not after this episode, no. And look, I'm wrong. There is no facial hair here. Look at that. Yeah. Never mind.
So.
Thought there was. My bad.
So, Picard's like, look, I don't know what's going on. You saying that a Federation starship is attacked destroy one of your outposts? Well, I know nothing about it. Look, give me an hour. Let me call my bosses. We've had a lot of success here with this peace. Let's not do this. Here's what Picard says, and it's a good quote. Let me talk to my superiors and find out what is behind this. Give me 1 hour. The alternative is for us to continue firing at one another, and in such a contest, you would be at a disadvantage. To which Macet nods and is like, very well, 1 hour. So
yeah, I like that. I like how Picard puts the onus on Gulmasset, even though Picard has all the cards. You know, Gulmasset knows this, but he understands that Picard is trying to preserve his dignity among his crew. That makes sense?
It
Or
does.
am I reading too much into it?
No, Picard is, again, also trying to be diplomatic because there's clearly information he feels he doesn't have. He's like, all right, let's not start a war here. Restart the war. Let me check it out. But look, bro, if it continues to be a throwdown, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he's
fact.
basically, yeah, it's like when he told Duras to fuck around and find out, but with class. It's kind of a similar thing. Picard has a way of saying these things. Well, very well done too, and delivered with such perfection by Patrick Stewart.
Doesn't I understand that it's an actor and it's a prearranged writer and a written line and stuff, but does it not drive you nuts that you can't think of something similar to say in an everyday interaction with someone?
Occasionally, I am able to whip out some lines that are good. Like, I impressed you a few minutes ago with my segue.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm talking like in an adversarial scenario, like
off of them. Yeah, every now, smart ass quips is more of an American thing now.
Well, can I do a quick side? 2 minutes. Quick side.
For you and your gallant crew, I grant you 1 minute.
Okay. There was a car accident that happened in front of me, and car turned left in front of me. I was turning left too. The car next to me was going straight. Car going straight had the right of way. Car in front of me turned left and, hit them. Both cars were hit so bad that the car next to me was disabled. I pulled off, got out, went to help him. Another guy was pulling the door open. I helped pull the door the rest of the way open. Guy got out. He was hurt. We're sitting there. The traffic behind on the southbound lane was backing up because there were these two cars here. The car that was at fault drove off. We didn't get his information, but I got his picture of his license plate. So, there's that. But I'm assisting the guy. His family is just down the street and they come running out. And I'm talking with them, like our kids know each other. It's, so they're like, okay, thank you for doing this. And I'm like, I'm going to call 911. You guys need an ambulance. Got it. I'm calling 911. Car that is still stuck in traffic, first in line, is like, guy, I need you to help me push this car out. I'm like, no, there's no way. The entire front suspension on the driver's side front, gone. There's no wheel. It's on the ground where the suspension is on the ground. You can't push that around. Just turn it around. Guy got offensive with me. He was like, just push this car. And I'm like, no, drive around. There's a guy that's hurt. And he's like, I don't effing care if he's hurt. Pull the car. I'm like, no. And he's like, F you. I'm like, and I turn to him and I go, yeah, well, you're a really nice person. You know that? To think that that's all you can do? And he looked at me. I swear to God, DT, like he shut the door of his car after he got out. He was about to get into his car, got it back out, shut the door, walked around the car, and I'm on the phone with 911, by the way. Like, the police are on their way, and I'm going to 911 like, he's walking right towards me. He's walking right to the guy picks up debris, and he's holding it up as if to, like, whack me with it. I'm like, he's picking up debris. He's about to hit me with it. And the guy hears me, like, tell this to 911. He's like, and he just throws it at my feet, runs back into the damn car, and then drives around like I told him he was supposed to do. I fucking shamed that guy. But that's the deal. Like, that was my biggest retort. That was my retort that shamed him. But it was not nearly as a Picardism.
Look, not everybody can be Jean-Luc
in any
Picard.
way, shape, or
Just
form.
remember that.
I can't be. No one can. Except Jean-Luc Picard.
Exactly. Anyway, comes back. Picard has this meeting. Well, obviously, Picard has this meeting with his boss. One of his bosses, like, yeah, so that actually happened. Wait, what? Yeah, this Federation starship, under Captain Ben Maxwell, attacked this research station, and we can't get a hold of him. He's off the reservation, so to speak. He's off. They can't get a hold of him. Picard's like, oh shit, really? It's just wild, man. They dig in. Maxwell has got this reputation as a fantastic captain.
He's one of the premier captains of the fleet.
Right. And so Picard, who doesn't know him but knows of him, is like, that makes no sense. He's one of the most, well-respected captains. Well, there must be a reason. The Admiral has no clue. So they're like, look, the ship's not contacting us. I need you to go figure this out. But in order to, keep things from blowing up with the Cardassians, you need to take, some representatives along with you so they feel like they're a part of it, right? They don't feel like we're kind of sweeping this under the rug or anything, or giving them a runaround, because the Federation is not at a point to having a sustained fight. Now, border conflicts are one thing, but this is starting to look like it could be a one-man crusade. And while the Federation may be technologically more advanced than the Cardassians, and like a Galaxy Class Starship will, take down a Galler Class warship, we just are reminded that, this is episode 12. So like 12 episodes ago, a bunch of Federation starships got 40 ships just went down at Wolf 359, right? So Starfleet's spread out kind of thin. They're starting to realize, oh shit, we're in not the best position. So let's get to the bottom of this. See if you can intercept the Phoenix, figure out what's going on, and like squash this, because the Federation is kind of in a mess with the Borg shit, and we've got this peace treaty with the Cardassians we want to keep. Oh, and by the way, the Romulans are back, and these are all things that I'm sure are going through their heads. Nothing is said out loud, but when you look at the recent events of the Next Generation, I mean, the episode before, they just had a showdown with the Romulans. So, I mean,
and a spy that took all of the Federation's deepest secrets with it.
The spy who shagged our secrets.
Well, I mean, that would be a little obscene, but
so is a Romulan masquerading as a Vulcan. That's obscene. Anyway, this is an interesting, flip flop. So they invite Gul Macet and his, a couple of his aides to come aboard. So hey, look, you're gonna be part of this investigation. You're gonna come with us. Picard's talking to the senior staff. He's like, all right, the Cardassians are coming in, so let's be good hosts. Worf's like, we should have guards following them. And, obviously, this is another case of, Worf being denied. Then he's like, well, can I at least put more guards around the sensitive shit? Like, let's not have it. He's like, yeah. Even Riker's like, yeah, I kind of agree. So Picard's like, okay, let's beef up security in some sensitive spots. And then Deanna's like, well, we did just have a war. I can imagine some people might feel a little funky about this. Yeah, that's right. You should go look into see who's going to have a problem with the recent enemy on board.
That eliminates Troy from being able to sense if the Cardassian or Gul Macet is lying about those ships later transporting, regular things, by the way. Because we don't see her for the rest of the episode.
Nope.
That's and she can sense lying. Yeah.
Yep.
I need you to be among the crew. look after the crew and stuff, and which would
Not the
have
crew on the
solved
bridge,
the
which-
issue.
Not
Would have
the
solved the
crew on
issue
the
right
bridge.
away.
Yep. Crew on the bridge who really needs it. Nope.
Yeah,
I get it.
no.
In theory, it's not a terrible idea, right? To make sure that your people aren't going to be openly hostile to people you're trying not to help you, trying to help you keep the peace. Be the right thing to do, right? In theory, right? So,
and
then
the
he's
last
like,
time
okay.
we see her, last time we see her is when they greet the Cardassian party on, and O'Brien is the one that beams them onto the transporter pad. They come on, they're greeted, and as they walk out, Troy stops as she walks out the door and looks at O'Brien, who's watching the Cardassians, and then notices her watching him, and he's like, "Oh, caught. Nope."
Well, she probably got a little.
I love little transporters.
A lot of Empire business. A lot of Empire business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, and which is also kind of funny because it's also counterpointed to some of the conversations that it's interspersed with Miles and Keiko first over breakfast, where then they go later on where he's trying to teach her about his, she was giving him a Japanese breakfast. Now he wants to serve her an Irish breakfast.
And
in addition to all the
reacting to that breakfast.
Yep.
And she's disgusted by the idea that his mother actually touched meat and really cooked, which gives you an insight into where things are going technologically and stuff. I mean,
everybody replicates
that's a thing. That's a thing, though, right? Like, I mean,
it's really like
that
DoorDash.
would be a natural progression. It is
Like
kind of like
everybody's-
DoorDash. Oh my
Wait,
God,
you
I
actually
am so
cooked?
dependent on DoorDash. Oh my God.
Yeah, it can be a crutch, but you have, they talk about the Cardassians. The Cardassians are on board, and there's an interesting conversation where Miles and Keiko are discussing, the war from a different perspective, right? And he, that there's some uneasiness, right? Especially since O'Brien has already been brought up to the briefing session to try to give some information on Captain Maxwell to Picard, because he's like, had anybody served with Maxwell on
He was
the Enterprise?
tactical officer.
Yep. So brings in O'Brien. O'Brien's like, yeah, I can, whatever you want to do, I can help. Okie dokie. And that, but anytime that's it's kind of an issue. Like this guy, he's clearly got some sort of beef, and O'Brien kind of runs everything down. We lost his family at this place called Setback 3. It was a massacre, which is the first time you hear of this, which becomes a important backstory to O'Brien throughout the rest of his tenure in TNG and Deep Space Nine, especially Deep Space Nine. But O'Brien's like, whoa, this isn't revenge. That's not what this guy's all about. He's a great captain. He's probably got his reasons. I'm sure something's going on. We've just got to talk to him, right? So the Cardassians are kind of suspicious. They think that the Federation's hiding shit. O'Brien, you can tell, is a little protective of his captain, but maybe also has some wounds. He's trying to deny him. When he talks to Keiko, he's like, oh, why should people feel a certain way? The war's over.
He third-partied it. Like he said, I've noticed that there are people, crew on the ship that are still holding a grudge against the Cardassians, and I just don't get it. I mean, the war is over. Shouldn't they be putting that behind them? Where he's literally third-partying his feelings and throwing it out to the crew and asking Keiko to give him an assessment literally about him. But he plays it off really well. And by the way, that's very good writing. Because we
And
don't
solid
see
acting.
him observe that. We don't see him observe that at all on camera. So but we see it through Troy in him. By the way, ingeniously demonstrated without any words. And then he has to exercise that in this discussion with his wife about that. Really well done. Like subtle, but well done. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I would do something similar because I wouldn't want to admit that I haven't moved on either.
Look, it's a very hard thing. Okay.
Yeah.
When you're stuck when you're in a tense combat style situation, it is hard to sometimes let that go, especially if you're face to face with people who either you were in, you fought, or people that you distrust because of maybe their alliance with people that you fought. Okay. There's a lot of that. That's why there's a lot of up and downs with how a lot of, military personnel are reacting to the Iran situation. I can just tell you that I have a strong distrust of the Iranian government. Okay. Because I know we've proven that they've supported terrorists and, in terrorist groups, insurgent groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels, all of these things that have caused problems in many other areas, right? I lived 60 miles from the Iranian border. I was actually closer to the Iranian border. Yep. At one point, I was stationed closer to the Iranian border than I was to my own higher headquarters. So that's a tense situation, okay? Clearly, there's some lack of trust because a lot of the dangerous things that were developed that were used on me and my comrades in Iraq, we knew came from Iran or from Iranian support and stuff like that.
Most of the stuff in the Middle East came from Iran.
There's some of that, not all, but some, right? So so I very much understand O'Brien. I also know as I try to be an enlightened person and know the difference between the government and the people, understand, at some point you have to find a way to move on.
Yeah.
I don't want to. In retrospect, look, in hindsight, when you're thinking, when you're thinking abstractly, like sitting around a dinner table and going, I mean, yeah, the Cardassians are here, but we're not at war anymore, and we're on the flagship of the Federation, and if we're supposed to make nice, then yeah, we should make nice. We're an evolved society. We're advanced people. We shouldn't have these base instincts. Some of this is just, you can tell it's O'Brien's head versus his heart. He knows he should be somewhere, but deep down in a spot, he probably is not really happy, is still there, is distrust, maybe some prejudice that popped up once or twice in the early seasons of Deep Space Nine. Some issues comes over, but that happens to a lot of veterans, especially when and military personnel, especially when faced with people who, you were in opposition to, okay? People who were maybe at one point were the enemy. I'm not going to speak for all. I just know that there's definitely can be an unease. Okay. So that's what O'Brien's dealing with.
I'm going to pull up something because it's going to reinforce your point.
What makes this episode great is O'Brien and he's like the key figure of this episode, right? And if this was made now, he would be dead by the end of the episode, just so you know.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. Anytime a small supporting player you see nowadays seems to get like a big bump in, screen time in an episode, they're usually getting ready to axe that person because they're a familiar face they can get away with killing off without, destroying the fan base.
Yeah.
But it happens so much. But back then, like, O'Brien got an episode. This could have been a Data episode. This could have not really a Data episode, but this could have been a Riker episode or somebody, on the main cast, right? Could have had a similar, right?
Damn,
but they brought in
the scene. It's not on YouTube.
And O'Brien didn't have a huge chunk in the episode before because it was mostly about Data, but he was an integral part of the previous episode. So he's back to back, good chunk for O'Brien, right? So you're developing that character who is generally a pretty likable character. He's a solid professional, skilled, and a guy who actually then gets to demonstrate those skills, like that you really see, not just here, let me do the transporter and he beams up, but like demonstrating he was fleshed out as a well-rounded character now.
Can I add something to that?
By all means.
So O'Brien was used in a big counterpoint to what we saw Picard comport himself as. So Picard was all being diplomatic and saying, well, Gulmasset, everything, I don't trust that you would think that we're showing everything to you, but I will say this. Everything that you hear, I'm hearing for the first time in the spirit of cooperation. And there is no news that I'm keeping from you or my people are keeping from me in order to get this investigation underway. And Gulmasset is placated by that. And I
would say placated, yeah. He's definitely mildly mollified where he's like,
yeah,
okay. You can tell he's very uneasy.
He made a point. Yeah, he's still. I mean, as the Cardassians would be, they're on an enemy ship. There's only 3 of them. They have no weapons, nothing. And I'm sure that Federation soldiers have done horrible things to the Cardassians, as we're going to talk about in a second. But here's the thing, and 2 points. 1, O'Brien gives his assessment. Shit. It's funny that the captain is Benjamin. What's his last name again?
Maxwell.
Benjamin Maxwell, and then he serves Benjamin Sisko.
Yeah.
But he's like, Maxwell has a damn good reason for something. He's not crazy, and then he makes his point, and then they leave. And he's in the turbolift with the 2 attachés for Gulmasset. And one of them is like, your ship is impressive. I'd like to get your consult on your transporter technology because we're still operating on this phase variance frequency. And O'Brien's just uncomfortable. And this Cardassian is really reaching out, trying to put the olive branch out. And, O'Brien's aloof. And then the Cardassian goes, we're heading to 10 forward, to experience what your ship has for that, and would you like to join us? And then O'Brien, this is the first time we really see a Starfleet officer act un-Starfleet like, where he snaps at the Cardassian, orders me to consult you on your transporter technology. I will do it, but I will be damned if I'll spend my personal time, and I'm butchering this a little bit, spending my time.
Who I spend my personal time with is my own business. About who
that's what it is. He didn't say I will be damned. He was a little bit more polite in that, but he snaps at them about that. And that's jarring. That's jarring because you don't normally see that among Starfleet officers, with especially aliens in a sensitive diplomatic situation like this, right?
Well,
and the Cardassians are the ones that are putting out the olive branch, by the way. Right? They're actually the innocents in this.
Well, the one guy is.
I'm sorry. What was that?
So
You cut out
the
there.
tall guy is definitely.
Yes,
The other
tall
guy's just
guy.
kind of standing back, a little mean mugging, and then he ends up
He
trying
reminded
to
me
sneak a
of
peek.
God, he
He
reminded
looked
me
a little
of
like
what's
Doug
his name?
Jones.
Well, the tall guy did, yes, but the one that gets caught at the computer console, he reminded me of God, who was Gul Dukat's guy that took
DeMar?
over for Cardassia? Damar. He reminded me of Damar. He had the same facial structure, but it was not the same guy.
Yeah, I know. So you're right. It did look like
this guy right here.
Yeah. So yes.
Oh no, maybe it was this guy.
No, that's Glendaro, the tall guy.
Oh yeah, no, it's this guy. Yeah, he's blondish. Yeah. He's dark haired. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we don't see a blondish Cardassian either after this either.
Not really, no. And I don't know, maybe it might be production design, make it simpler to rotate things in and out.
Oh, it totally is. It totally is.
But what I will say is, you don't normally see a Starfleet officer lose their temper unless there's one of generally two categories: some sort of sci-fi plot of the week, disease, possession, something like that, or the one who goes mad and causes all the chaos, right? So
this is not either of those.
No, but it's also very real and very human, which is also
right, which is why it was just jarring.
It's jarring, but also understandable. Especially this was a very rare time of the next generation, or even to a degree, I think a lot of TV at the time really kind of shied away from PTSD and whatnot. To a degree, and
there was a lot of focus on it in the 80s because of the Vietnam War. And
early 80s Vietnam, but still not done super well. A lot of it wasn't.
Well, no.
I mean, they did try to do a lot of
limited.
Right, but they did try to branch out from the brutal look of they put a lot of Vietnam vets in heroic situations. Magnum, the A-Team.
Well, that was try to make up for the portrayal of Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly.
In Hollywood and stuff. That was their mea culpa in a sense.
Correct.
And that's a well thought out film paper that's been written many times in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So
yep.
In academia.
The next generation actually didn't do a terrible job with this, because you see it here with O'Brien. You see it in the episode The Hunted, where you have those genetically engineered soldiers.
An episode we covered. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was last year.
What do you do? Yeah, I believe so. You also see some of it in I'm drawing a blank. The one where Beverly gets kidnapped by the terrorists.
Yeah, the Irish troubles simile.
Parallel, yeah. So yeah, there's that. Yeah. Meanwhile, this one is actually one of the episodes that's recommended for Irish Star Trek fans.
True.
Mostly because of the focus on O'Brien, the minstrel boy segment, and also the fact that this was not only a well-written, and also a little discussion of Irish culture from his mother, his discussion about his mother and whatnot. But overall, what you're seeing now is it's a tense situation. O'Brien lends his expertise, tries to give him some information, and he has a great heart-to-heart with Picard too in the transporter room. Where Picard, asks him, they start talking to him about Maxwell, and O'Brien kind of asked, like, why would a person, continue to feel this way and whatnot. It's like, I don't think he, Captain Maxwell, I don't think he's on a vengeance, kick. And Picard's like, well, when you're mad for so long, it sometimes it just feels more comfortable than changing.
Can we talk about that line for a second? Like, it feels it feels more comfortable the longer you wear it, the more it feels more comfortable, like leather.
Here's the quote. When one has been angry for a very long time, one gets used to it and it becomes comfortable like old leather, and finally becomes so familiar that one can't remember feeling any other way.
Yeah. Holy shit. That is an amazing quote. When was the last time you heard a line like that since? Like, in recent memory? I can tell you when. I can tell you. It was during was it WandaVision, when Vision goes to Wanda as they're about to dissipate, and he goes, "For what is grief but love everlasting?" That's probably the last great line that I've heard in the modern age. But even that, like, seems to pale in comparison to what he just said when it comes to wearing that hate and that anger and stuff. Because at some point you don't understand that you can't differentiate what that hate is versus what every day is.
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
wow.
And it's tough, You get that, and then they finally catch up with the Phoenix, right? Or they locate them.
First appearance of the Nebula Class ship, by the way.
Yeah, with the weird upper pod, which I'm glad they got rid of. It just looked kind of
it was like
wonky.
A teacup. It was just a teacup or something.
It was supposed to be like some sort of sensor pod.
Yeah.
But they locate them on long range sensors. They're going to go catch up with them, and then he starts attacking a Cardassian supply ship, and Masset is asking for support. Their warship is closer than the Enterprise, so finally he convinces Picard to give him the prefix code to, like, basically take down the Phoenix's shields. But the downside is the Cardassian warship intercepts, managed to get a good shot off, but the Phoenix moves out and they have superior weapons range, and then they just take them out. And then they show up and take out this supply ship. So he's killed almost 700 people.
Yeah.
And that's when they finally catch up with the Phoenix. And so they kind of lean over to him and they're like, Captain Maxwell, we've got some stuff to discuss, man. Things really aren't going well here.
And you know what's interesting is, like, when I was a kid, even back then, we all at this point were framed with, okay, Captain Maxwell must be crazy. He must be going insane or something. But when
like one of those mad admirals.
Yeah, the Mad Admiral and stuff. So even at like 12 years old, I'm sitting here going, oh, he's got to be insane. They need to have, security on him and everything. He walks through Captain Picard's ready room door. He's jovial. He's lighthearted.
Coming off the
transporter pad. Completely jovial. That's right. I'm sorry. You're right. I did watch this episode today, by the way.
And it was he was engaging. He's like, oh, Commander Riker, and he's like, hey, you did a hell of a great job.
We owe you
with
one.
The Borg. We owe you big,
Yeah,
and Riker's kind of like stuck, like,
what?
He's very kind of. You could tell Riker felt really awkward because he's kind of like stiff. He's like, thank you, sir. He's like, look, I've been. And then, but he also then sees O'Brien, and he's like, "Hey, my guy, how you doing?" Gives him a little rib, a little Irish accent there, And then he's like, "Okay, Commander Riker, let's go talk to your captain. We got some shit to discuss." A little folksy, but still, I'm like, this guy's engaging, right?
Yeah.
Already, he remembers the former crewmate. He's heard of what Riker has done, understands the impact of Starfleet and the Federation. Immediately,
He's one of the most decorated captains in Starfleet.
Sure. But now you start to see why, all these things that O'Brien was saying, all the things they talked about with this guy, you start to see why. Although once you get here into the ready room, and Picard is stiff, and of course, I mean, how would you feel if, a guy you worked with, had this sterling reputation, then you find out he goes and wipes out, blows up a house. It's comes into your office hey man, we should probably talk about why I blew up this house.
Right. I was literally watching this interaction, and I'm thinking, if I was Picard, I'd be like, Captain Maxwell, what the hell are you doing? I probably would have said so. I wouldn't have been as composed as Picard. I probably would have put him, this is leader I can't be, by the way, right? What the hell do you think you're doing? Trying to assert dominance, trying to assert the power of the Federation behind me, to tell him you're doing something wrong here. But then Picard is a little bit more diplomatic about it, and this allows Benjamin to be able to open up a little bit more about why he's doing what he's doing. And then Picard asks questions. And this is where I would have failed. I would have failed right here, because Benjamin would have been immediately on the defense, would have shut down, you don't understand. You have no idea.
And it still reached that point pretty quickly. But, Picard's like, who? What? I mean, he's just asking.
He got more info out of it, though. But these are good questions to ask, because Picard was very diplomatic about it. What sources do you have? Because Benjamin says, I have on good authority that the Cardassians are rearming, and they're putting together a weapons cache and a what was it? A jumping point or a spy point or something like that.
Yeah. It was about a research facility that oversee 3 Federation sectors or something like that.
Exactly. And that's when Picard goes, what's your source? Do you have receipts for this? Do you have paperwork? What's the paper trail?
Yeah.
And then that's when Benjamin's like, you don't understand. You just that's when his argument falls apart, because he probably knows the source. But he can't give it away because he doesn't want to portray the source. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that one.
There might not also be a real source.
There might not be, but we don't know. But he ends up being right.
Yeah, it was smells musty in here, like a bureaucrat's office. When Maxwell's finally,
right. Yep. He realizes, you're not going to back me up. Gotcha.
Yeah. When at first he comes in, he's like, I'm glad they sent you, because you know what it's like out here. You know how crazy it can get. You know how tricky these guys can be. Picard's like, I don't know any of this shit. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Which is, it's very interesting too. This is almost this strikes me as pre-Borg Picard to a degree. If anybody who might be able, you'd think anyone who doesn't know Maxwell might be able to get through to Maxwell the kind of, psychological damage done by a significant loss. You figure Picard might actually be able to talk to him. You just watched.
Okay, I see where you're going. But
the emotional scarring
Picard buried himself in his duty. Picard buried
Yeah,
himself in his duty, and
but you see it in family where it overwhelms him. You see him with issues in subsequent dealings with the Borg.
Not much though. When Hugh came about, he didn't freak the fuck out at all.
Maybe it
He
was
should
just
have.
one Borg.
He should have. He should have
Sure.
freaked the fuck out. You know, he should have started having trembles and stuff when that the Borg cube was around.
They were saving that for the movies.
Well, yeah, I know. That's the key. That's the issue with the movies. Like, that's the natural reaction Picard should have had in the next interaction with the Borg. But there were so many interactions in between.
Yeah, exactly. So you get this, but it's funny. Like, actually, we kind of skipped over a couple of the more interesting scenes, right? So first, you get, after Picard talks with O'Brien, and you can tell he kind of gets through to him to a degree, or at least makes O'Brien question some things. Then is when O'Brien ends up down in 10 forward, having a drink. The tall guy, Glendaro, he's sitting there, and O'Brien, he's like,
hold on,
offers O'Brien another
scene.
Oh, this is some of the best writing. This is a fantastic scene.
I'm gonna cue it up.
O'Brien apologizes for his harsh words earlier, and then the Cardassian offers, "Would you like another drink?" So
yeah,
this is
now the fun part is. Go ahead.
No, this is a very O'Brien tries to explain himself.
It really is, and this is so
clearly telling a story he hasn't told anyone in a long time.
Which is what he was trying to kind of tell Keiko through the third person.
A little, but kind of he whitewashed it.
He was
hand waved it when he was
testing
starting
the waters
to sing
a little bit.
But he was also doing it subconsciously too. He was starting to sing the Minstrel Boy, which he hadn't thought about in a while. And then, she asked him about some stuff. He mentioned some wave top things. He was clearly trying not to go too deep into it. There's some very good interspersed moments of like O'Brien's, I want a little bit of his denial, and maybe his desire to be that shining pillar of a Starfleet officer that we all, at this point had expected these people to be.
Isn't that what they all want to be? But we're still human,
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is where you really start to see O'Brien explain the Cardassian Wars and this incident at Seklik 3 really did to him. And
here we go.
It's a very honest.
We're probably going to get
conversation
bananated for this, but whatever. We'll work around it.
We have to keep, kind of like interrupting and talking periodically.
By the way, this scene, every time this scene comes up, I'm reminded of my father, because this is one of the few times I watched an episode with him, and this enraptured him. And at the end of this scene with O'Brien's stinger, my dad audibly went, "Oh, ooh," like that's literally what he said, and I'll remember that till the day I die. Like, he never watched sci-fi stuff with me. So
by both actors, by the way. The Cardassian,
absolutely.
The guy's got to do all these physical reactions, eyes, facial movements in that heavy makeup, but dude's got very expressive eyes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You can see the eyes flick around as he's looking away, and occasionally, like, some things O'Brien says, like, snaps him back to him. It's a fantastic back and forth, even with a little, you would say, limited dialogue from the Cardassian. which, by the way, the moment you're right, when he says that our intel was bad, and that the information the troops received was that it was a staging point for a Phaedra attack. Yeah.
This is that moment where O'Brien's seeing it, and then he's going to turn away, and he literally like crunches his teeth. Like that's a very subtle movement by Colmini that he does that.
And it's hard too, because some of it is like, I bet you can see that there was some inner conflict he was having. Like, it still was a massacre, but wait a second. Now he's like, wait, my perception is being challenged too. Like,
and so the whole time I killed someone for the first time because of an accident. Like that's literally what he's going through right at that very moment. Like he's had to process this, but now he's got new information, and we're literally seeing him process this in real time.
Yeah.
And he can't help himself. So he crunches his teeth, and then he can't help but tell why. You know, like he brings it all out at that point. Like, just such brilliant writing. Oh my God. You don't know. We didn't know what we had until we didn't have it anymore. You know?
and it's funny too, because like, especially going on to Deep Space Nine, seeing so many different Cardassians that are way more militant, aggressive, or deceitful, or
or gray.
Well, yes, and they are gray. The skin tone has changed a little more gray.
Skin tone definitely went from flesh tone here or here to here. By the way, the uniforms here I like a lot better.
Yeah, well, they look a little bit more like some of these guys. While it's still a little stiff, looks like they were a little more comfortable to wear.
A little bit, yep.
But the point I was making was, you have, even with a limited screen time, like you don't see too many Cardassians like this particular Glenn. Glenn Darrow is what his name is. And this guy seems more introspective, even a little more outgoing to a degree. This guy's definitely trying to, extend the olive branch. And I almost wish that there was another scene, at the end where like he and O'Brien would shake hands before he got on the transporter pad or something like that. But it would undercut the ending anyway, a little.
Yeah, might have been filmed, but yeah, it was probably considered that.
So, I mean, but the fact of the matter is Maxwell, Picard kind of dresses him down and tells him, hey, you're done. I'm going to give you the dignity of going back to your ship. You will accompany us back to, Federation space, to the nearest star base, where you will have to answer to your crimes. But I will give you the dignity of doing it from the command deck of your, from the bridge of your own ship. And he's got kind of like huffs and puffs, and as it goes back, and they get underway, and then all of a sudden the Phoenix breaks out, and they have to chase him down. And they get to a point where there was a Cardassian freighter, where they're, where he's demanding that Picard board the freighter and see that it's carrying weapons, and they are noticing that it's, there's
got a high energy output,
energy field, which is blocking the ability to scan. Even to a degree, you can see that like Gulmset is a little perplexed. And while he's not as open, he's
hiding
second
his
aid
questions
is content
close.
to access computers, and Masset dresses him down. Yes, but he also dresses this guy down, has him confined to quarters, offers up to Picard that any discipline that he's willing, that he feels should be needed, Masset will second guess. Will support it. He won't second guess it or anything. So he's basically giving this guy Picard's, giving Picard this guy's fate. And Picard's like, I consider the matter done. I'll let the Cardassian military handle it. And Masset it's a pretty open admission that he didn't believe that if he was in Picard's place, he would be as forgiving. And Picard says, and there's another great Picard line: if there's to be a lasting peace between us, neither you nor I must allow any one man to undermine our efforts, which is not only about the aid. It's not only about the aid, but also referring to Ben Maxwell and his commitment to preventing Maxwell from restarting the Cardassian Wars.
Yeah,
so
it was
they do
catch
up
online.
Yeah, and they catch up with him
by the way,
eventually.
I can guarantee you that line was written on the fly by the writer. Like that's one of those lines that just comes out of the air as they're doing it in the first draft. And they're like,
maybe.
Oh, perfect.
Maybe, but it was fantastic. They get to the Phoenix. Picard's like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna go over there, and check out their Cardassian ship. And Maxwell's like, well, if you don't, I'm gonna blow it up. And he throws up the shields and and they're all checking out. Well, what are we gonna do? Masset's like, you gotta shoot at him. You gotta stop him. He's gonna destroy another one of our ships. Brian shows up.
Children
he's like,
on that ship, by the way, and family. We don't know. We don't know what the makeup of a Nebula class ship would be, but it looks very similar, like a sister class to the Galaxy class.
Yeah, exactly. So, Picard doesn't want to fire on him. The Cardassians are like, well, if you don't, he's going to destroy our ship. You said you were going to try and stop him. And so Picard's like, all right, fine. Be prepared to target, shields and weapons or something like that. And O'Brien shows up. He's like, look, I know how this ship works. I can go ahead and beam through this fraction of a second window to be able to get aboard the ship. And they're like, okay, well, if it keeps us from shooting at each other, great. So he manages to beam through. He gets over. He goes to Maxwell's.
Pause.
What?
Pause. 1 second.
Dude,
that exact methodology could explain why the Enterprise was able to beam off Geordi and Scotty in relics.
Sure.
Because the shield variance was slower.
Possibly. Could also be
totally.
the fact that ship is 100 years older, and they might be able to beam through those kind of shields by then. Also true.
Yeah, but the idea that fans are up in arms that they can't beam through those shields, bullshit. We just saw this.
It was so cool to watch.
Modern.
It was so cool to watch it. I kind of didn't mind it too much. I was like, you can't really beam.
I'm willing to I let it pass, and it can be done through headcanon. Why?
But I also looked. I'm like, man, those shields really look under stress. Maybe you can beam through those. Who knows?
Yeah.
You can headcanon the shit out of that. But
yeah,
you beam in here, and O'Brien shows up, and he goes to. Clearly, no one on the Phoenix is stopping him. I'm like, hey, can I talk to your boss? He's going to keep the Enterprise from shooting at you. Well, okay. So he comes in. Maxwell's about to phase him. He's like, oh, Chief, how the hell did you get over here? He's like, never mind, it's you. Clearly, you could get through. And,
let's let it play out.
Yeah, it's a great scene of how he basically talks him down.
Yeah, this is good right here.
Stomping.
I love the dropout.
Mm-hmm.
And this one.
Yeah.
Right here.
Realization.
I'm not going to win this one, am I, Chief?
And look.
Closer.
The AI toolkit is
Okay.
the one man who could get through to him. It was such a such a beautiful, kind of heartbreaking moment. And what I like about this is those are like two veteran character actors just demonstrating the reason why you see these guys in a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, O'Brien kind of starting to empower some main character energy here in this. And you get to see why, as they develop the character, and why Colin Meaney's performance is so well liked and received, particularly in this role, and why they wanted to bring this character over to Deep Space Nine. Okay, there's some realism there, and when Maxwell realizes everything is starting to crumble around him, and he almost looks resigned to it. You know, it's heartbreaking.
He's not crazy.
He's not.
That's the thing. He's not crazy, and he's not wrong either. He used the wrong methodology.
But he's also a man in a lot of pain. Okay, even when he wasn't crazy, he was starting to lose his grip a bit on
that pain commanded
the situation. Yes, and he definitely lost control of the situation. He was, you know, when he was starting to spiral a bit in Picard's office and a little bit in his own ready room. But rather than let him spiral out of control and go full mad captain or bad admiral, as you would see so often in particularly the original series of The Next Generation, you get to see a man come to the grip with his own mistakes and the reality of the situation by somebody he knows coming through him, and that man having to walk through his own troubles and his own, you know, rework his own thoughts and prejudices and come through his own heartbreak as well. Literally the only guy who could get through to Maxwell at this time, and it was wonderfully done. And you flash forward 8 years, I think, 8 or 9 years, maybe technically, to the finale of Deep Space Nine, when everybody gets their little montage. Little flourishes of the minstrel boy is heard when they go over O'Brien stuff, and it's perfect. It's a callback to one of his first big episodes in
I remember that
Star Trek, and
I was folding laundry that night.
it was fantastic. Okay, and the fact that you cut back to like the last real scene is the scene in the ready room, or excuse me, in the conference room on the Enterprise. Massette, O'Brien, and Picard, and O'Brien giving Picard and Massette the rundown of everything. You know, he's like, I can see that he was wrong. I know that he was wrong. I understand it, but he was a good man. You know, he had done a lot of good before now. And, you know, Picard kind of, you know, says thank you, dismisses him. Massette is like, yeah, I feel a lot better with this guy under lock and key. And, you know, Picard
his loyalty
is like,
admirable, even if it's misplaced.
Yes, exactly. The loyalty that you would so quickly dismiss does not come easily to my people. And then he cuts a little bit. Ben Maxwell earned the loyalty of those who served with him. And if he could not find a role for himself in peace, we can pity him, but we shall not dismiss him. And then as Massette's about to walk out, Picard drops the lines where he's like, Maxwell wasn't wrong, though. You got these freighters running hot with all these shieldings, the observation posts that seem to be aimed at Federation space. It's like, something's going on. I can see it. And then he's like, well, why didn't you board the ship? And he's like, because then we would both be arming up for war. But then
rather than having this conversation right now.
Yeah. And then Picard is also like, you know, what was it? Tell this, you know, bring this to your leaders, go on the set. We will be watching, and turns the chair on him. which is like it's such a boss move.
It's good. It's good.
But at times you know, you could see in the earlier seasons of the Next Generation where people are like, oh, Picard's too cerebral. Kirk would punch his way out or do more action. There's times like Picard will just drop these like boss anvils on people, like cartoon style, and just crush them. The interesting thing is, from the look on Gul Macet's face a couple of times in this, I kind of think that maybe he didn't even know about some of this stuff. I got feeling at times that Macet was really more just a loyal Cardassian soldier who wants to protect his nation, his people. I didn't get the deception. I did get the mistrust, which you could understand when some dude from your former enemy keeps zipping across your border and blowing up your people. I would be distrustful too. And it's very funny because when you see him against Dukat, you don't get that cockiness or that sly bullshit, but but he's also not like a pushover. He has a mind. You know, he's times, you know, while he's pushed Picard, he's never up in his face, and you know, it's definitely calculated. But I don't think Macet is definitely like the guy that's like, okay, you're going to go over there and you're going to defend the border. All right, you're going to go and you're going to make sure that they catch this guy. Okay. He's not the guy that they're telling about all their deepest, darkest secrets to, I don't think.
No.
He may have had his suspicions, but, you know.
Yeah.
Quick, interesting side note from the old Apocrypha that is no longer a thing. In the expanded Star Trek universe that they started doing around 2000, when they started having like a continuation, what they called Deep Space Nine Season 8 and continuations of Voyager after it got back, and they would crisscross with all of them, and like people every like year there'd be like a crossover book series kind of thing. But in the post Dominion War Deep Space Nine, Gul Macet becomes a recurring character in the Deep Space Nine books, and it fucks with people because he looks like Gul Dukat, and it turns out that they're cousins.
Oh, well, there we are.
So that's how they tied it in. They're cousins.
How would you not, right?
But Macet is not an evil douchebag. In fact, he turns out to be a relatively solid Cardassian soldier leader who actually would occasionally
man of honor.
Basically, yeah. And that he and Dukat did not get along. They just happened to look alike, which, you know, was kind of interesting.
Dukat was a politician.
Yeah. And it was, which is kind of nice, you know, you get that vibe, but I kind of liked how they continued that one particular character who was interesting. Of course, you never saw the helmets again or those shitty uniforms again. But the Cardassians became a huge part of, you know, Star Trek, being the main villain, one of the two main villains, I guess you would say, of Deep Space Nine, but also a recurring issue.
They only appeared in TNG 5 times before Deep Space Nine happened.
But this episode and a couple of the subsequent other episodes, you could really sink your teeth into the Cardassians, especially once they brought the Bajorans into it. And it was very interesting. But this is one of my favorite episodes, and I generally tend to watch it around St. Patrick's Day. It's a great O'Brien episode. They have the minstrel boy. It's a pretty version of the tune, you know, how it kind of ties into war and loss and whatnot. I love this episode. That there's so many little lines or scenes in that episode that really hit home. It hit home to me. I really liked it when I was a kid. Now that I'm older, and a veteran, and I understand a lot more of this. But even then, that stuff would get me in here in my heart and mind. But the more I watch this episode, the more I can see myself in some of this. Plus,
Well, yeah,
this was
naturally.
really well acted. You know, in addition to really,
And no one
people who
cried,
act-
by the way. No one cried.
Maxwell was on the verge.
He was affected, but he didn't cry.
No,
But
if he-
how many
but
times
if
do
he
people have to
had-
cry in Discovery?
that's a different story. But if Maxwell had broken down, started crying, you would completely understand. His whole
Yeah.
world was coming apart, and that weight, that crushing weight of the loss of his family, you would actually absolutely understand that. I'm just saying,
I would
if
argue
it happened,
him-
it wouldn't have ruined this episode for me at all.
It wouldn't have, but I would argue that the fact that he sits there and he solemnly looks at himself and he goes, "I'm not going to win this, Chief, am I?" is probably one of the most masculine things that could be done on screen.
Yeah, but I meant the part where he was reminiscing, like the kids not being able to grow up and whatnot. If he had
No, I'm
started
not
crying there,
contradicting that. I'm moving on.
yeah, I completely get it. But you're right. He would have. But I also think he would have. You still could have gone into that where he could have been like, and you see the resignation wash over him, which it's perfect the way it is. I just thought if there had been some tears, it wouldn't have ruined it. That
Yeah.
being said, you
No,
also
what I'm
see
saying,
the resignation in his face, plus the kind of understanding that he and O'Brien reached about their own struggles. There was a lot of
and he owns his
visual
actions.
cues. You know, there wasn't a ton of unnecessary exposition about people's feelings and whatnot. You kind of had to read it on the actors, and it was very well done. The Picard was fantastic in this episode. Okay, so was Patrick Stewart, generally pretty much on. Another excellent acting, but Palomini crushed it. I really think Mark Alimo did a very good job with Gul Macet. And he wasn't like he never came off as a mustache twirling villain. You know what I mean? Which made it
Yeah,
a
we
lot.
emphasize that.
But that also takes quality acting to be able to do that, to make us as intelligent individuals go, I made it. As much in depth as we've had about him. That's good writing and that's good acting. And then of course Bob Gunton, who plays Ben Maxwell, who if you watch a lot of TV movies, he's usually an authoritarian asshole. And this is a very troubled and broken man, but a man who at one time had been one of the greats and a fallen hero, so to speak. And
So you mean to tell me that back in the day, when the production actually cared about the show, they actually hired good actors?
Hey, look,
and
sometimes
good
you can hire
directors.
good actors and give them bad direction or bad
and
writing.
writers. And good writers? You mean like when they cared all about all that shit? Yeah, that happens. I'm not minimizing anything you're saying. I'm just trying to emphasize this is
another
the
classic
best what
morality
Star Trek was.
Yeah, this is. And for this to not be in the listed in the top 10 episodes of the Next Generation and still be this good should also tell you
There's
something.
A lot of good. Yep, that it is.
And it is.
So,
and to me, this is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes of all time.
I can completely concur. And actually, the fun part about that is I get to have a memory of my father with it too, which is nice.
That is nice.
Because especially when he didn't understand why I liked sci-fi, but he, in that moment with O'Brien and the Cardassian and 10 Forward, he got it. He got that moment at the very least. Like he could see through the silly makeup. He could see through the silly uniforms.
Yes.
And he saw the humanity in that. And he goes, oh.
few better,
And
man.
that means something.
Few better. And it does.
That means
when
something.
you're going to have those moments with family, if there's something that gives you good memories. To me, this hits on a different scale than when I was a kid due to the life I've lived. It's also something that I can look back on it and go, I can still learn from this. You know?
Well, I think we all can, but you're right. In your own way, especially with your unique experience. Like that's what these morality plays do, especially when we get older and we gain wisdom. We see it from a different angle. That's the exact value. You're exactly right. Like, that's why it's rewatchable.
It is. It is. It's eminently rewatchable. If you're looking for a place to start on Deep Space Nine, this is kind of get you the background there. But one I will tell you is, again, not only is this one of my favorite episodes, I think it's very underrated as far as writing, acting, storyline. I mean, it gets mentioned, and this is the first appearance of the Cardassians. You learn that. I still believe it's very underrated when you start ranking it among the best episodes in the franchise. Not just The Next Generation, but the franchise. I give this episode a straight up A, man. This is a top flight episode.
A+.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? A+, most definitely.
A+. Solid. Mm-hmm. Every way around. Music, character build.
Music was great.
Dialogue. All of it. Like, we got to see a new Starfleet ship, which looked pretty good. And also adversarial, by the way. It looked like a tough little ship. Mm-hmm. And we got to see the Cardassian ship, which was a really cool looking ship. And we got to see movement between the two. And when you look at that movement between all the ships and stuff, knowing what they had to do with moving these models, taking 7 shots each movement with different lighting, things like that, that was a lot of work. And it looks gorgeous now.
And those models are big.
Amazing. Yeah, they're huge. And that was one of the last big models they ever made, by the way. For the
I love the Nebula Class Starship.
Yeah.
I wish we got to see more on them Nebula Class because they're just so neat.
They are, and we got to get a good shot of it in comparison to a Miranda Class vessel in Generations in that last shot. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because the Nebula was a descendant of the Miranda Class, which is funny. But they showed it in scale, which was neat.
Well, I always liked that they had like the variants. It was like you had the Constitution and the Miranda and the Galaxy and the the Nebula. So even like the Sovereign and the Akira class, they're kind of similar in that way. Something with teeth.
Yeah. And we can talk about that a little later. Maybe we can revisit ships again. So
we should.
All right.
But
and on that note, take us out, DT.
Yeah, this was a fantastic episode, folks. If you haven't watched The Wounded and you're a Star Trek fan, go rewatch The Wounded. Definitely rewatch it. Close it out, my man.
So until the next time, you guys keep dreaming. We'll keep working. We are those sci-fi guys. I'm P.S. McKay. Take care, everybody.
And I'm DT Cavman. And from up here on the high ground, I can see Fiddler's Green, and the Minstrel Boy is always playing.
But Chet McKenzie
Max got a pen that can warp the stars. DT's got stories from cavalry scars. One writes the worlds where the heroes fly, the other old tanks under desert sky. From sandbox sports to the final frontier, 2 kids with dreams and a 6-pack of beer. Different roads, same old spark. Talking Trek till the streetlights spark. We read those encounters with man, I drove that guy. From doom to doom, we argue the stakes while the coffee gets cold and the pizza box breaks. Childhood pals in a grown-up fight for the best damn death scene on a Friday night. Pixels or pages, we're never done. Two working stiffs chasing alien sun. We're in those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cabin lighting up the airwaves. Blasters or books, we're geek to the core. Laughing through the lore on those sci-fi guys. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah. No capes, no powers, just regular days. But we'll save the galaxy in our own ways. Max drafting novels in the dead of night. DT's got tank tracks, turns them into light. Together we're louder than a hyperdrive scream. Two regular dudes living the sci-fi dream. Yeah, yeah, we're with those sci-fi guys riding warp speed waves. Mac and DT cabin lighting up the airwaves. From the sandbox to the stars, we'll never say die. Tune in, geek out, those sci-fi guys. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Next week, Blade Runners or replicants? Bring the Bourbon Rider boys, gonna get real.